Rollin here. I wanted to make a video because I actually just left Houston, Texas, and I'm on my way to Lake Jackson, Texas. So I'm going down to Lake Jackson, Texas to train some students on tax lien investing. And so since I got a little hike down here, my GPS says I've got about 30 miles now. I've been driving for a little while. I said I may as well make a video and get something efficient done here and perhaps give you a tip. I sent an email. I got people who receive emails from me on occasion. Maybe it wasn't the right time for them to get started in their real estate career, and so I kind of add them on my email list. And so I sent an email out a few weeks ago, and the email was talking about the less I do, the more I make. Now I know that sounds weird because in society, one of the things that we equate with being successful is you got to work hard, right? You got to work hard, and usually working hard means putting in more hours. You know, right? That's the equivalent of working hard. So when someone tells you the less you do, the more you make, it doesn't equate. And so what I'm here to tell you is that there's actually a system to it. Let me kind of tell you a story on how I came to that conclusion. My mentor told me this a long time ago anyway, that the less you do, the more money you'll actually make. But let me explain the concept of why you have to have some systems. Came to that conclusion was because of something that happened in the real world in my business. I remember I bought this house once. This is in Georgia. I'm from Atlanta. I bought this house once on Windy Hill in Georgia, Marietta. And I had this one house, and the house was getting like 60 phone calls a day. It was crazy, 60 phone calls a day. And I remember thinking, wow, you know, this was crazy. I'm sitting here driving myself crazy trying to sell this one house. Every time a phone rang, I would have to tell somebody, you know, the address of the house. I would tell them how much the house was. I would tell them, depending on what side of town they were coming from, you know what interstate you'd have to get on to get to the house. And doing that 60 times was driving myself nuts. And I remember thinking to myself, I got to be doing something wrong, because my mentors, the people who had been doing business a whole lot longer than me, I never saw them on their phone like that, a slave to their phone. So it seemed to me that I wasn't running my business was running me. And so what I did was, I started asking some of my colleagues how they were running their business, how they were selling their houses. Because quite frankly, they were selling like 4, 5, 6 houses at a time, and I was driving myself crazy with one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 tips of how you can. I'm going to give you 5 tips of how you can make more by doing less. All right. So tip number 1: always record yourself. If you find something that you are doing over and over again, if you find something that you keep having to tell someone over and over again, I don't care if it's to your team or if it's to an individual, record it somewhere. If it's an email that you constantly have to type and it's basically the same email, you need a template. You need to have it recorded somewhere so that you don't spend all that time recreating it every time. That's a waste of time. So that's the first tip that I would say, is record things that you repeat constantly, whether it's a webinar, what have you, conference call, what have you. So that's the first tip. Second tip: don't let people just disrupt you anytime they want to. That's one thing that I used to do, is I used to let people call me. I just want to make sure I'm still on. That's one of the things I used to do, is I used to let people call me pretty much any time of day, any time of night. And really, again, that's your business running you, not you running your business. So that's another thing I would do. So set it up so that you can be efficient in your business and you can check your messages when it's appropriate for you. Set it up so that you can run your business and respond to people when it's appropriate for you, not when it's appropriate for them to disrupt how your business is running. So that's a second tip, is make sure that you run your business efficiently so that people aren't interrupting you. Third tip that I'd give you is, what was my third tip? I had 5 tips. All right, third tip that I'd say is to delegate. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase before. Jack of all trades, master of what? Master of none. If you ever think about it, there's always somebody that's in our life. You've probably met someone like this. There's always someone in your life that is always trying to figure out how to cut out the middleman. They always want to try to figure out how to do it themselves. I don't need an attorney. I can do this myself, right? Now they're trying to be a lawyer. I don't need an accountant. You know what? All I need is TurboTax. I can figure this thing out. They're always trying to cut out the middleman. And if you notice, a lot of times those people who are doing that, a lot of times they're not doing all that hot financially. So one of the things that I would say to make more money by doing less is to delegate. Know what you're good at and stick to that, and delegate the other things that you're not so good at. Let that be to the professionals. So from a real estate perspective, if you're not a mortgage broker, then you need to give that to the mortgage broker. If you're not a real estate agent or real estate broker, then you need to let that be handled by the licensed professionals. Stop trying to do all these things that you're obviously not good at. If you're a real estate investor, then focus on the acquisition and sale of houses. That's it. Now, don't try to be a jack of all trades. So that's my third tip. Fourth tip, I'm a big mafia buff. Maybe it's because I'm from New York, or maybe it's just me, period. But I'm a big mafia buff. Watch a lot of mob movies. If you notice, all of the successful bosses, right, that run big families, they all have someone called a consigliere. Consigliere is usually the old man that's in the group. He's a counselor. I guess it's Italian for counselor. I don't know. But the consigliere is the person that's been around for a long time. They've run a business for a long time. This is the person that can save you a tremendous amount of time. All of the headaches and things that you think are new, there's nothing new under the sun for them. They've seen it before. You can shave years off your learning curve by having a consigliere. For me, I've got a few people around me who've been investing for 30 years, 30 plus years. So things that I think are a challenge in my business, to them it's like, real estate crash, seen this before. I've seen this 3-4 times before. So they can tell me how to handle this without it being the end of the world for me, all right? That's my fourth tip. Fifth tip that I would give you to be able to make more money by doing less is to measure what you're doing. It's important to measure what you're doing. I think in business they call it metrics. It's important to measure what you're doing, because one thing I hear a lot of people saying is when they want to improve their business, they say things like, yeah, you know, I did okay this year, but next year I'm going to work harder. All right, what does that mean? Work harder. That's too generic. And if you did work harder, how do you know that you're working hard at the right things? It's really not about working harder, if you want to be honest. It's about working more efficiently. And efficiency means that you're tracking something. You're tracking, you know, like I heard somewhere on the radio once that Walmart knows that when it's raining outside, or if it's snowing outside, if people are snowed in and they can't get out, you know what people like to order? They like to order strawberry Pop-Tarts. Now, how the hell do I know that? Walmart knows that because they study. I don't know why people like strawberry Pop-Tarts when they can't get out and they're snowed in, but for some reason, Walmart collects that data. That's useful things to know. And so the same thing for your business. Well, you need to understand what makes your business run efficiently. What information have you gathered? Like I run a nationwide business. I do consulting, not just locally, but on a nationwide level. And I track my stats. So from a national perspective, I know out of all of the different states in the union, I know where I get most of my leads from. I know about what time of day most of those leads come in. I know all sorts of different statistics that my competitors might not know. It allows me to be more efficient. It allows me to work less, because if I'm trying to decide where to allocate my resources, I know where to put them. So same thing for you. Don't be one of these people that just says, I want to work harder, I'm going to work harder. It's not about working hard. It's about working efficient. It's about figuring out how to accomplish more by working less. So those are my 5 tips for you. Hopefully I've given you something that will help you. I'm still not in Lake Jackson yet, but my GPS says I got about 17 miles to go. So hopefully this was helpful for you. This is Rob Lett. I'm out.